Hi friends, welcome to my knitting channel. I have a few projects to catch you up on, but for the most part I have not been knitting very much, especially in the month of August. We went on our trip to Washington, D.C. at the end of July, which was a fantastic trip. We had such a great time. But when we came back, I really just lost all of my knitting mojo, and I didn't knit for like 2 to 3 weeks, which is pretty unusual for me. So I haven't been knitting a ton in the month of August, and I decided that instead of doing a sort of regular podcast style video this month, instead I would film kind of regular updates throughout the month of September, sort of in the style of Lucy Makes, who I love watching. I've watched all of her videos. And she'll just sort of update throughout the month of whatever she's been working on, and I just find that to be very inspiring. So we're gonna try it for the month of September. Today is September 1st, it's a Sunday, it's Labor Day weekend. I have been working on my sheep camp sweater because that is the knit along ends this weekend, actually tomorrow. So I've been working on that a lot this week, trying to get it finished. Last time I showed this off, I had finished the yoke and I had knit a little bit on the body. I'm now down to the ribbing on the body, and I've knit 2 full sleeves. So I'm really close. I think I have like 5 or 6 more rounds to go on the ribbing, and then I might do something a little bit different with the neckline. I haven't fully decided, so I might spend some time experimenting with that. This was part of the Sibling Energy knit along that was going on this summer, and I did not think I was going to be able to get this done in time, gonna be honest, but this past week I really put the pedal to the metal and focused on it and got both sleeves done. I've been working on the body and we're really close. So this is using Spin Cycle Dyed in the Wool Ghost Ranch for the contrasting yoke color, and then for the main color I used Cascade Yarns BFL in the colorway Nimbus Cloud. So my goal for today is to finish this if I can tonight. It's already into the evening, so I think I'll just be probably putting on a spooky movie and working on this and hopefully finishing it. So that's kind of my biggest project at the moment, but I do have some other updates, some other things that I've been kind of lightly working on just the past couple of weeks. So you know about my Traveler combo spin that I'm doing. This is the Traveler hoodie by Andrea Mallory, and she is hosting a Spin It to Knit It knit along to knit the Traveler, any version. There's a bunch of different garments and accessories, and I am making the Traveler hoodie. So I started spinning for this a few months ago, and this is where I'm at. So this is the bottom. It's a bottom up sweater, and I've just split at the underarms for the front, which I think I'm actually gonna make this the back because it's the same up to a certain point. So this is gonna be the back, and I'm just working on, I think there's probably about this much more to go before that is complete. So just slowly working on this, but yeah, this is a combo spin out of a couple different fibers. It's a combination of Falkland, Polworth, and BFL fiber, and I'm mostly using 2 braids, like 2 colorways, with 3 braids of each of those colorways, and then an additional braid added in. I just finished my recent skein, and this is, I think, the biggest skein I've ever spun. It is a mega skein. This is like over 600 yards of sport weight yarn, and it's huge. It like barely fits into an actual skein. So this is the skein. So I had most of this spun. I just had to finish one of the bobbins and then ply it. So I did that this past week and a half, and got that soaking and all finished. First combo spin and my second ever spin for like a project. And I already have my next spinning project planned, which I might talk about in this video because I did some project planning this morning and I ordered some yarn to go in a couple different projects. And yeah, we'll talk about that later once that yarn arrives. So that's the Traveler. And then I'm also working on a couple small projects that I cast on right before our trip this summer, and I really did not knit much on them at all, but I did a little bit, so I'll show them to you. This is a pair of socks, and this is a pair of patterned socks, which I haven't knit in a really long time. This is the Mermaid Avenue socks by Summer Lee. It's a really interesting slip stitch pattern. It's pretty simple. It's fairly, I would say, like every few rows it's just like plain knitting, but you do have to pay attention because you are offsetting where you're slipping the stitches, and so you have to kind of keep track of that repeat. It's like a 10 round repeat, so it's not like complicated by any means, but it's just, it kind of holds your attention a little bit. I would say it's like medium in terms of like mindless versus like involved. So it's pretty good travel knitting, which I did knit the majority of this while on the plane, but man, I am not a good travel knitter. I need to work on that. And I'm using this really gorgeous Coast to Coast yarns. This is their Soup Sock Club that they did a while ago. This is the Split Pea Super Sock Set with the Crusty Loaf mini skein, and I split it up to work on a different project, but I'm pretty sure it was this one, so it's just like a cream color to go with it. So I'll probably use that for the contrasting heels and toes. But I also have this other Coast to Coast mini skein that came with a different one of the Super Sock sets, and I might use that one instead because it coordinates pretty well. So we'll see once I get to that point. Another travel project that I cast on is this Musselburgh hat in this highlighter yellow color. This is Cascade Heritage in the colorway highlighter yellow, and I just made it through the crown increases and have knit a little bit of the main body. So I haven't worked much on this, but I did just order another skein to go with it because I don't think this one skein is going to be quite enough. Okay, this last project has a little bit of a story behind it. So years ago, my partner and I tried yarn dyeing. I bought like a little kit of acid dyes from Dharma. I bought all of the other tools that you need, like a pH tester, and I went to the thrift store and I bought like a bunch of pots and stuff just so that we could dye safely. And we had a lot of fun. We spent like a whole Saturday trying out all different types of techniques. We ended up with all of this yarn. And what I ended up doing is I split a lot of the bigger skeins into mini skeins so that we could try out like a bunch of different things and we didn't just have to dye like, you know, 5 full skeins. So that's all of it. It's just a bunch of like fun colors, but none of them are really like any of our color palette necessarily. I did make some socks out of some of them, but they're just 100% wool. It's just the Knit Picks palette yarn. And so I've had all these yarns sitting here for years and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it, but I knew that I wanted to kind of combine them and create a project that included all of them just as a little like memento for that fun experience. So I decided to make a cat blanket for our cats. So here's where I'm at. I am holding the yarns by 3, and I'm really just like picking out colors that are really similar and just knitting like different color stripes. And I just cast this on like a couple days ago, and I'm having a lot of fun working in different stripes. One of our cats loves 100% wool and like can tell the difference if it's not 100%. So girl after my own heart. The other one, we'll see. I have no idea if he's gonna like it. I feel like he's probably not going to, but I know for certain that our girl Midna is going to love this as just a little like loafing spot. So been working on this. I'm using 10.5 size needles. Like I said, I'm holding 3 strands together, so it's working up super fast. And I'm just working garter stitch with I-cord edges. So just 2 stitches of I-cord on the edge, and the way I'm working that is every right side row I just knit across, and then every wrong side row I hold the yarn in the front, slip 2, knit to the last 2 stitches, hold the yarn in the front, slip 2. So it's very simple, and it's been really fun to work our hand-dyed yarn into a cute little project. So that's what's going on in my knitting life, and I'll check back in once I make some more progress. It's been a week. I have gotten quite a bit of knitting done, more than I usually get done in a week, I would say. So let me catch you up on what I've done. First things first, I finished my sheep cam. It is fully blocked and done. I got it done the day that I expected to, last Monday, the end of the cowl. But before we celebrate how beautiful this sweater is, I must tell you, a tragedy among tragedies happened during the blocking process, which is that the spin cycle bled into this very light colored base yarn. So this was my first experience with spin cycle, and it says on the label that it most likely will bleed. Basically, like, it effectively tells you like this yarn is going to bleed. And you know, I thought about that when I first cast on for this sweater, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll be careful. It wasn't that I wasn't careful. Like, when I blocked it, I blocked it in tepid water, let's say. It wasn't cold, but it also wasn't warm, like lukewarm at most. So I put it in the water. I put some wool wash in there like I usually do, and I just kind of like patted it down in the water to get it fully soaked, and I left it there. Left it for about 10-15 minutes. I came back, everything was looking good. Cool. Then I get lazy and I leave it for like the majority of the day. I'm sitting on the couch, I'm watching YouTube, and I'm like, you know what? I have a sweater that is currently soaking, and I need to go take care of that before I go to sleep. So I walk into my office where the sweater is, and I see a very sad thing, which is that almost all of the colors in my spin cycle have bled into the rest of the sweater, and it's really a mess at this point. There's also like a large splotch on the body of the sweater. There's splotches on the sleeves. So my partner and I immediately sprang into action. We're kind of panicking. We're Googling stuff. I don't think I've had this happen like to this extent. I've certainly had dye bleed during the blocking process, but not necessarily for a color work project. So we try a bunch of different things. What we ended up doing to get it to the point that it is at this moment is mostly just using color catchers. They're just these sheets that you put in water to catch like excess dye as it comes out. So I immediately dumped the water that it was in and put in fresh cold water, put in 3 color catchers. I started out with 2 and I ended up putting a 3rd one in. A lot of wool wash and a lot of like gently massaging it, and that ended up helping get a lot of that excess dye out. So you can still see a little bit of bleeding, especially in the pinks. The pink and the red is like mostly what bled, but the greens and blues also did a little bit, and those are actually the colors that you can still see the most. So the red and pink dyes came out, I think, the easiest, and the green, like especially on the back, you can see, and I think especially on camera, you can see the blues that bled down here. There's also a big splotch on the body, which, yeah, it's over here. And I'm gonna be honest, this is a lot more visible on camera than it is in person. It's still visible in person. There, you can see it on the sleeve as well. On that sleeve, there's a little splotch here of the pink dye. And this was much worse to start out with. So really, like, we did a lot of work to get this to where it is and to be what I would consider pretty wearable. I don't think that it like fully set into the yarn, and I still think I might be able to get some of that out. So I'm gonna try a couple things. I'm so glad that it worked out and it's still wearable, because that was tragic. But on to more fun things. I got quite a bit done on my Traveler hoodie. I thought I had finished the back completely, but I actually had a couple more repeats to go. So I'm almost done with the back. So here's the full thing, and this is how much progress I've made, and I think I have like a repeat and a half to go, something like that. So I'm really close to being done with the back. I still can't tell if I like it. I'm still deciding. Yeah, we're just gonna let that one marinate as I work on it. I did cake up that giant skein and turned it into a giant cake. So I'm working from this now, and I've also started spinning for the final skein. So I got a little bit of progress done on that one night last week, and I'll probably keep spinning on that this week while I watch The Leftovers season 3, which I just started, and it is so good. I got a little bit more done on the socks that I'm knitting. I got another repeat done, and then I decided to keep these pretty short, and I started on the heel flap, and I decided to go with the cream color for the heel flap. I started with the like other orangey color, and it just wasn't working for me, so I switched to the cream. I like that a lot more. Yeah, I was working on this while we were watching Only Murders in the Building season 4, and while we were watching Dimension 20, and then I just kind of put this down and haven't picked it back up, but I kind of decided that I am not really enjoying knitting this pattern. It looks cool, and I have kind of been in the mood for patterned socks, so I'm not sure why exactly I'm not loving this. There's something about the pattern that I don't know, I'm just not having a great time with it. So I might finish this sock and then put it away for a bit and come back to the pair at some point in the future. I also have made more progress than I expected to, honestly, on my Musselburgh. Got a few inches in. I was working on this while we were on the way to see Hozier, which was an amazing show. So got a decent amount in on this. Oh, and my cat blanket. Let me go grab that. Surprisingly, I actually haven't finished it yet. I really expected to finish it last weekend, but I put like one more stripe in and then I didn't pick it up. So here's where I'm at. I think I'm gonna do one more stripe and then bind off and then weave in all the ends. It's the next day and my Wool & Co order arrived, so I will show you what I got. This is the order that I placed at the start of this video when I mentioned that I was doing some fall planning the other week. I got yarn for a couple different projects. Ooh, this is perfect. This is yarn that I got for the Sawana sweater by Denise Otter. It's in the Pom Pom magazine Roots and Branches, this one. And it's not this sweater, although that one is really cool. It is this one. It's quite an oversized, chunky, cabled sweater that I thought would be perfect for the middle of winter when I just want to cozy up in a huge sweater. And I really liked the pairing of the fuzzy yarn with the all over, like, more subtle cables. Like they don't pop out very much, but I really liked that texture. I looked at a few different yarns that would work for creating this type of texture, and I ended up just buying the yarn that the pattern calls for. It is supposedly a bulky weight. I think because of the fluffiness, it really adds a lot because the actual strand itself is like not that bulky. So we'll see what the knitting experience is like. And I went with this really cute light purple, lilac, lavender, somewhere in between. I got 8 skeins, which I think is 1 to 1.5 skeins less than it called for my size. But I'm planning on cropping it quite a bit. It looks like a fairly long sweater, and because it's so oversized and blocky, square? Boxy, that's the word I'm looking for. It's a fairly boxy sweater, so I want it to be pretty cropped. So yeah, I ordered less yarn. Hopefully that was the right call. Oh, I lied. I have 9 skeins. And then I also got yarn for another project. This is just some Knitting for Olive mohair in the dark mustard colorway. This is so pretty, IRL. I think it is on camera too, but this is like, wow, this is gorgeous. These do not go together for my project plans, but these look really pretty together. Just grabbing everything to show you what my plan is. Okay, I think this is gonna look really good. My plan is to knit a tessellated something. I would like to knit the tessellated cardigan, but I don't know if I have enough yarn. I'm really on the cusp with it. That might not work out. If it doesn't, my backup is to make a tessellated vest or possibly the pullover, which might require less of the main color. But anyway, I'm gonna make a tessellated something, and let me show you what the rest of the yarn is. Here's what I have for the main color. This is Imperial Yarn Mackenzie in the colorway Moss. It's coming up a little bit more blue on camera. In person, it is pretty solidly a like yellowy army green. So I've got this is a fingering weight, which is not what the pattern calls for and is another factor in my decision making for which tessellated I'm going to make. But I think that I can make this work. It's a little bit plump for a fingering weight, but the problem is I only have 4 skeins, and I could certainly order another skein. They still sell it, so I can order more of this, but I would prefer not to if I can help it. So this is my main color, and then this is the mohair that I just bought, so that's going to be held together. And then for the third yarn, which is Spin Cycle in the original pattern, I am going to spin this braid from Nest Fiber. This is the Glad Tidings colorway. This was part of one of the fiber clubs from last fall, I think. Yeah, November of 2023. So my plan is to spin this into a sport weight for the color changing yarn and then pair it with these two. And I think that's gonna look really, really cool. For the mohair, I was debating between the dark mustard and there's one that's called like light honey or something like that. And this looked a lot darker on my screen and the other one looked closer to what this actually looks like. And I'm really glad I went with the darker one. I made that decision because mohair always appears a little bit lighter than it does like in the skein. But this color I think is perfect for matching the rest of my yarn. Okay, I'm really excited about that project. I know it's gonna take me a while because I still have to spin and I'm still spinning. Like I have over 8 ounces to go for my traveler. So there's a lot of spinning in my future, which is not a bad thing. And then the last thing that I got was just a single skein that I threw in my cart because I'm still kind of deciding if this is actually what I want to do. I mentioned in that first video that I didn't think I was going to have enough yarn for my muscle burra. I think it's going to be really close, and that's for like the yardage that the pattern calls for, and I think I want to make my hat longer than what the pattern calls for. So my thought was to knit the second part of the hat in a different color, and I really like cream and neon yellow together. So I found this skein, it's the same yarn, it's Cascade Yarns Heritage, which is a superwash merino and nylon, and this is in the colorway Snow, I think. It doesn't say, but it was something to do with snow. So it's not as much of a yellow, it's more of a neutral cream, which I thought would look really nice with the Brat adjacent yellow. So TBD on if I actually do that, but I figured it doesn't hurt to have this in my stash if I don't end up doing that. So that's what I got. Those are the plans. I'm really excited to cast on the Soana. I think that's how you say it. I should look that up. Yeah, I only have one sweater going right now, so I think that means I can definitely cast on a second sweater here soon. But I do want to make it through a little bit more of my traveler before I do that. Last night I did work on the back like I said I probably would, and I started working on the short rows, which I forgot existed when I was talking to you last night. So started working on those. So I'll definitely make it through that before, make it through the back before I cast on a swatch for this one, but really excited for it. I'm still having a lot of fun making progress on my traveler, despite having to rip out a bunch of progress, which I'll talk about in just a second. It is September 19th. I meant to check in with you earlier. Typically I have some time on the weekends, but we've just been so busy this month and we did a bunch of stuff every single weekend this month. So I'm checking in when I can. It is Thursday and I just got done with a week-long training at work that was very intense, but I was able to knit during parts of it. So I finished the front up until the neck shaping. So here's the front and the back is like hanging out back there. I got up to the neck shaping and I didn't have enough stitches, and I thought, that's weird. Is there an error with the pattern? Looked on Ravelry, nobody was having issues. I was like, okay, it's probably me. And then I realized that all the way down here where I separated the back and the front, I forgot to cast on stitches at the start of the row and the end of the row for the arm side shaping. You see how it like juts out right there. I forgot to do that. So I knit the entire front 20 stitches fewer than it should be. So I'm almost back to where I was. That was, I think, Monday or Tuesday. So I've knit a lot the past few days. I've been watching the Scream franchise. I made it through movies 1 through 5. I just need to watch the 6th one. This was my first time watching the Scream movies, even though I'm a horror fan, I just hadn't seen them. and they're just a vibe. They're just a vibe. So I've been watching that this week, watching a lot of movies. Honestly, I don't typically watch that many movies, but yeah, so I made a lot of progress on this. I'm almost back to where I was. I've got one more repeat to go, and well, while I was ripping this out, it was really sad, of course, and I was like, I can't believe I've done this. How did this happen? I was trying to estimate how much time I had spent just on the front alone, like what I had to rip out, and I was thinking I had spent somewhere between like 8 to 10 hours working on this. So I decided to time myself as I reknit the front to actually see how long it took me, and I'm a little over 5 hours right now, and there are 6 repeats. I'm like a quarter of the way into the 6th repeat, so it has only taken me about an hour per repeat, so not nearly as bad as I thought. I think sometimes when I'm just knitting along and it feels a little bit like a slog, or if I'm like watching a lot of movies and I'm not, you know, knitting every single minute of the movie, but I'm thinking about my time in terms of like 1.5 to 2 hour blocks of knitting, it can feel like I'm knitting for much longer than I actually am. So that was reassuring in a way, that I didn't actually lose too many hours of progress. That can be heartbreaking, and it was a little bit less so. So I'm still working on this. I am going to hopefully finish up the front today. I think I can get some knitting time in tonight, and I'm estimating it'll probably take me an hour or 2 to do the front neck shaping, bind off, and then I will seam the shoulders and start on the sleeves. I'm definitely gonna knit both sleeves fully before I start on the hood, because I am sort of running out of yarn. I am probably gonna have about 800 yards once I'm done with the front. I have this skein, and then I'm spinning my last skein, and I should get about 600 yards from that skein, plus maybe 100 to 150 yards out of some extra fiber that I'm spinning for this combo spin. So I don't know, I might end up with about 900, 950 yards in the end to knit the sleeves and the hood, and I'm just not sure that that's quite enough. So I'm gonna knit the sleeves, and if I can't do the hood, it'll be a little bit sad, but that's fine. But I just want to make sure I can actually make a complete sweater before I start knitting the hood. This is sort of a giant tangled mess at the moment, but I did make some progress on my Mermaid Avenue socks, is that what they're called? I put in the heel, turned it, and I am working on the gusset right now. So got a little bit of progress on this. My goal is by the end of the month I will finish this sock. We'll see how that goes. And let's talk about my Sawana next. I have not cast on yet, but I sort of breezed through the fact that this is not just a cabled sweater, this is a brioche cabled sweater. So yes, this is a all over brioche and brioche cabled sweater made out of a really fluffy, pretty difficult to work with yarn. I don't know what to say other than I like a challenge. I knit a couple of swatches. I knit one about twice as big as this in just the brioche stitch, and then I ripped that one out and I started one with the brioche cables, and I got through a repeat. Actually, I think this is only half of the repeat, but I got through both cable types in this swatch before I was just like, all right, I'm done swatching. In the regular brioche stitch, I am getting half a stitch bigger than the gauge in the pattern, but in the cabled stitch, I'm getting perfect gauge, and I'm thinking I'm probably just gonna leave it at this gauge and let that kind of even itself out. The pattern gauges are both the same for the regular brioche and the cabled brioche. And so I would have to switch needle sizes while I'm working any brioche that's not part of a cable, and I think that might end up throwing off my gauge if I tried to do that. So I think I'm just gonna go with what I got. I did block this and it didn't change very much after blocking. Technically, brioche cables are almost always going to be at a slightly smaller gauge because they pull in at the cables. But since the pattern has both stitch patterns as the same gauge, I'm just gonna kind of roll with it. I also didn't tell you exactly what yarn I'm using because I didn't know how to pronounce it. So I am using the Sandnesgarn,
Borsted alpaca,
which translates to brushed alpaca, and it is 96% alpaca and 4% nylon, and it is fluffy. I've already gone through every hypothetical scenario where I make a mistake in this and have to fix it, and I do not have a response plan. This is just basically going to be vibes, which is not usually how I make decisions in my knitting, but it's been a long week, it's been a long month, and right now this is just a very pretty thing to me, and I need a pretty thing in my life. Did I tell you that I decided I like this? I decided I like it. Can you see me over the fluff? It's Monday, I'm tired. This weekend, Oktoberfest began, so we did a lot of Oktoberfest festivities over the weekend, as well as our usual Sunday reset. So I really did not get much knitting done. I did do some swatching for something new that it's percolating right now. So I'm kind of figuring that out. So I spent a good chunk of my weekend time working on that, but I also finished the front of my traveler and I got the shoulders seamed. So here's how the body looks. I haven't blocked it yet, so it's a little like squat looking. So I'm interested to see how much the body grows. The pattern says about 80%, 20%. It'll grow about 20%, so it's about 80% of its length at the moment. I did try it on and it fits really well, but the bottom kind of cinches in a little too much. So I think once it relaxes a bit, it'll look a little bit nicer. And then I picked up for the sleeve and I made it a few rounds on that before I set this down to cast on my Sawana. So let's talk about how my Sawana is going. I've pretty much just started, but as I suspected, this pattern is intensive, so here's how much I've gotten done. I am still sort of establishing the base pattern, so I'm still getting used to things. There's so many stitch markers on this, and they're all like different colors because they represent different sections of the pattern, and the pattern references the stitch markers like as separate stitch markers, and so you have to know what they all are. And I think that's going to become a little bit more obvious once I continue with the pattern and I get it a little bit more established. But at the moment, it's a lot of paying very close attention to the pattern and really taking my time with it to make sure that what I'm doing is correct, because frogging this is really difficult. I just have to tink back. I can't like rip out the stitches and frog a row and then put my needles back in because I am a little bit terrified of dropping a stitch. I am pretty confident in my ability to pick up brioche stitches and cabled stitches. I'm not sure if I've ever tried cabled brioche stitches, but this yarn is pretty challenging to see what you're doing. I think I'm getting the hang of it and it's going a little bit more smoothly than I anticipated at this stage, but I am still really scared of dropping a stitch. So it's pretty slow going. Some rows I will have to pause whatever I'm watching or listening to and just like turn on some music and really focus to make sure that I'm reading the pattern correctly. There's a lot of like, do this and then repeat like a small section of it and then do another thing and then go back to the front and repeat that part. There's a lot of back and forth between the pattern with all the different cable patterns and repeating rows and stuff that I have to keep track of. There's also a couple other things that are going on that are sort of happening at the same time, where you have to move your stitch markers at certain times within the pattern and you just have to keep track of that. The pattern, you know, it isn't gonna hand hold you through that. So Knit Companion is really useful for this pattern because I can easily track where I'm at on different pages and like flip through to different pages really easily. The written instructions are really in that like classic magazine knitting pattern style, where if you read it word by word, like you can understand it. It's telling you what to do, but man, I have missed a couple key things in this pattern where I'll realize that I messed up and have to like go back each stitch to figure out like what I did wrong. And then I realize like, oh, I missed, you know, this like small instruction in a parenthetical or in between commas or something that was just, it was in there, but I just kind of skipped over it. So it's definitely a detail-oriented pattern, which is what I expected from a magazine pattern. I've attempted a pom-pom pattern once before, many years ago, and it did not go well. So I'm sort of trying to redeem that experience for myself, and so far it's all been correct. I'm kind of waiting for there to be a mistake because, again, magazine knitting patterns, it's kind of notorious for there to be a couple mistakes, and for you to kind of have to figure out part of it on your own. I mean, so far it's going well. It's just very slow going, but I mean, I think this yarn is going to be worth it. I also cast on the third size, which is the 40-inch bust. So that's going to give me 4 inches of positive ease at my full bust, which falls into the 2 to 8 inches of positive ease that they recommend. I really debated between the 36 and the 40 because sometimes a 36-inch sweater will look a little bit oversized on me because that's my full bust, not my upper bust. But I really wanted to go for an oversized, chunky, comfy sweater, so I just decided to go up to the third size. Let me also catch you up on what else is going on. So this weekend we are headed on a little spontaneous weekend trip to visit family. It is not a happy occasion, but it'll be good to see them. But I need to decide what I am taking because we'll have a long road trip to get there. So I don't think I'm gonna take this. I contemplated it for a second and then I made a mistake in the pattern. So I don't think this is gonna be very conducive to road trip knitting. That's probably the majority of the time that I'll have to knit is just when we are driving. My partner usually drives like 70% of the drive, so I do get a lot of knitting time, but you know, I'm also navigating and watching the road and helping with other things. So I think I need to take some more mindless projects. I'm definitely going to take my traveler because it is fairly mindless and I really want to make more progress on that. And then I also think I'm going to take my sock because we are approaching the end of the month and I did want to attempt to finish this if I can. And that's probably as much knitting as I'll need for such a quick trip. But since we are driving and not flying, I think I'm going to throw in my Musselburgh because this has not been getting any attention lately. So that's the plan. We have another busy-ish week working and getting a few things done before we leave. So I will try to check in again, but I'm kind of expecting I'm gonna have some slow progress this week. When you look at it this way, that's quite a lot of progress. It's September 30th, it's the end of the month, and I need to close out this vlog. Our trip went well. I knit an amount while we were gone, and I have a whole stack of knitting to review. So first things first, in the month of September, I finished my sheep camp. Mistakes were made, it turned out okay. She's beautiful, we love her. Can't wait to wear her. She's a little scratchy, but that's okay. I also finished a cat blanket, which my cats like because I covered it in catnip and forced them to like it. So that went really well. It's already snagged in multiple places, which I take as a compliment. I also finished a sock, which I completed right before I pressed record. If I wasn't filming this video, I don't think I would have finished this. And I'm not going to knit the other one for quite a while, but it's cute. I used a different color for the toe, as you can tell, and I just didn't think I had enough of the cream. And I think it's fine. I think I would have preferred the cream all the way throughout, but it's okay. I made a lot of progress on my traveler. The sleeve is still pretty short at this point, but I put a lot of hours into this that I had to end up frogging, and overall, I'm honestly really happy with how much I got done on this. Coming in hot, my muscle burra. I knit from here to here on our road trip. I also cast on my Solana, which is going better than it has any right to be. This is the front neck, and it's looking really cute. I have a couple notes on this. One is that it is easier, it's getting better as I understand the pattern better and establish the cables more, and so it's going a little bit faster than it was at first. Still slow going because it's brioche and you're doing 2 rows to equal 1 row and all of that. Second, I made a diagram to label all the stitch markers because when you're first getting started, it's a little bit confusing. And I wanted to verify and make sure that I had everything correct. So if you make this sweater, I hope this helps you. Third, I dropped a stitch. It went okay. It was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. On the spinning front, I prepped a bunch of fiber, 9 ounces to be exact, and I started spinning that fiber, just a little bit. That's it. Hope you weren't expecting anything more.